Peace, everyone. Shalom, shalom, shalom. How we
Blessed
doing?
love, blessed love. Shalom.
Yeah, here we are back again. Shema Nu. I
Yes.
am Aki Antonio. This is Amorous.
Blessings, blessings. Love and harmony.
Yeah,
Happy Yom Shishi to everybody.
yeah, man. Greetings to everyone in the space. Everybody piling in. Everybody watching from the archives. Welcome, welcome. Of course, we want to open up by saying give thanks to the Most High Yah and give thanks to the great Chief Yuya for building this space and allowing us to present in this space, and of course authoring the text that we're going to be reading from tonight, which is the Anu Way Foundations. So, Cruz, you want to go through the preface?
Yeah, man, yeah, man. But first, we definitely want to open up officially again, giving thanks, praise to the great Yah. But I really, really want to take a special opportunity to give thanks to the Anu family. Definitely want to give thanks to you all for fellowship, our ear likes. You keep us encouraged continually. And we definitely appreciate y'all. Yes, Sovereign Eats, Sister Baksha, you reach. Yeah, man. Full joy. But definitely want to give thanks again to our new family for continually fortifying us, keeping us with provocative conversation, of course, leading into Sabbath and building continually as a collective with us. So want to send a special thank you to y'all as we transition now, moving into our summer season soon coming. So off of that, we will acknowledge again the 20-second delay. Family Anu, our sisters are rolling in. Yeah, man. Sister Moksha, Sister Deidre, Sister Kashia.
Peace, peace, peace.
Yeah,
Peace,
man.
Des.
Yeah.
Shalom to you.
Yes, Sister Dad. Sorry, I didn't see you pop up just now before I turned my eyes away. So off of that, we'll start with the preface, a condensed version of it. This book is not to be read only once. Read the words of this book of knowledge and wisdom out loud. Discuss the convictions of this work with your Anu brothers and sisters. Share this information with your people. This publication should be read daily. Every line in this book can be taken out of context and studied on the strength of its own potential. The truth is to be liberated. And just for those of you who will come on YouTube in YouTube land 20 years from now, those are the words of the great Baba Chief Yuya Hassan Anu, Chief Jagna of the Anu Life Global Ministries and the author and coordinator of this great work. Yeah, man.
Yeah, just welcoming everybody who's piling in now. I see peace, Akilo, peace, Naya. Yes, Sister Deidre. Mass for today is culture freedom.
Actually,
Show these people our culture on this fourth day.
yeah,
Yeah.
man, we will.
So we're going to be continuing the chapter on farming tonight. We'll be continuing our reading on courting, section on courting. So what we're going to be discussing is amorous feelings, expression of amorous feelings during the courtship process, and the protocol for how you should be relating to the person that you're courting with. And the section goes, do not communicate amorous feelings to one another. You do not want anything to cloud your judgment. Consider if you were in court and the two opposing sides began to express affection, sexual innuendo towards one another. You would consider this a conflict of interest. Relate to one another as siblings in the kingdom of Anu. There should be lively, shared respect for one another outside of the potential for sensual indulgence. There is no sex during courtship. If the man is already in an official union with another woman, sex with her is permissible. The prospective woman coming into the man's homestead should abstain from sex throughout the process, and there should be no sexual interaction between herself and the man. If there is sexual intercourse, the courtship has concluded. After sexual intercourse, the two are now married and living arrangements must now be reviewed. Sex is marriage. Full stop.
Period.
Period. All right, so Cruz, any thoughts after the initial reading? Before we get into our focus question?
Yeah, man. It's as today is culture. I'll be quite honest with everybody. This was not a culture that I even could have imagined myself navigating into a lifestyle of, which is, not communicating amorous feelings. You know, I don't know how many people, until they would have gotten into a system of strict discipline, would actually even be able to say that they never did that. I mean, I think for women at a younger age, before they perhaps become tied into more sexual relationships, perhaps they can maybe speak to that a little more. More preserving themselves. The whole first, second, third base concept. But in most cases, when you meet somebody, you know, many lifetimes ago, I guess you could say, it will always be like, hey, you're so beautiful. You have a ray of sunshine coming out your eyes. Spitting that game. You know what I mean? But if that isn't what you say, if you don't gas somebody up or tie into the Roman way of romance, what else do you say? And this ties very strongly into the dialogue that the sisters were having, with reference to mindsets and what preparations has one done to actually be in this space of courtship now. So that there is the first thing that comes to mind. Like, what are the steps that you would have taken to actually be in a point that there's strong enough energy to exchange verbally and mentally with somebody who is your anu brother or sister without communicating amorous feelings? Like, what do you say? How do you say it? How do you operate? And again, this being culture, there's a certain way that we approach this completely. And, there's stair steps. Stair steps is something that's very powerful and healthy. And you think about that mental dialogue, and you're now entering a new ministry collectively, the ministry of getting to know each other. So that's the first thing that moves my mind down that direction. How much culture we didn't actually have. We were uncivilized prior to this. That there is a level of sophistication and the discipline that's required. Obviously, again, pulling from the energy of last week with the sisters with your timelines. And then obviously the dialogue that we would have had the week before of scaling down communication. It's very direct. We're in this for a reason. And that same intention and connectivity moves into your betrothal and your marriage. But as I've been expressing, before we got onto family, especially onto the subheading of courtship, the self-courtship is very important. Your self-shape and your alignment with your purpose will be the one that will be one of the strongest strengths that you have in this process of being able to speak directly and concisely what's really on your heavens, what it is that you're looking to pull from, in this court of law analogy that we use. And it will also determine how disciplined you are in the process, So that, I kind of gave you all the airful there, but, there's so many different angles of not communicating amorous feelings. Why don't you? Okay, is there a drawback? One, because of the level of stoicism that you need to have with this person, because this may be a concubine coming in. There are different categories of mating that you have. So again, there's so many different angles. But off of that, I'd like you to give me your feedback also. Or give us your feedback, sorry.
And like you've been expressing, there's levels to this. It's not just something that you want to jump into, which is, like you were saying, we had no culture, but the culture that we've been practicing, because nobody walks around with no culture. Either you have one or someone's going to give it to you.
We Romans.
Yeah, we grew up as Romans, you know what I mean? So we came in with that romance idea of it, like, I like you and I want to be with you forever. And it's like, forever? Like, you just met this person and you're saying all these things because that's what you grew up seeing people say in order to get to a certain positioning with the other person. And then all of a sudden, when all of the endorphins die down and everything levels out, you can't stand this person. I hate the way they walk. I hate the way they always scratch their butt, when they get up out of the bed, anything, find any little thing to riff on. And it's not that you just start hating the person or the person changed on you, you never really got to know, and you never truly reveal yourself either. It's a funny game of trying to get as much out of the person while trying to give as little of yourself as possible. And you're playing this game on both sides. So it's a very interesting dynamic. Now, we have some activity going on. I see Chief Yuya, peace, Chief. Peace, Maxine. Peace, Ima Kuya. Chief Yuya had asked the question, why would someone settle for concubinage instead of being a wife?
Well, one of the first things is, especially from our culture, the man's level to create should never be suppressed in any which way or form. Once the women in his harem or the women in his harem are definitely aligned with that culture, what's going to happen is they will look to always make sure that the man is empowered on that level. So, for instance, they may realize that at mid-30s or possibly even their 40s, that their fertility level may not be at the highest point. So for them, they know that they would want their man's center, which would be somebody younger, but he perhaps needs to get some level of kingdom developed prior to this. So there may be a 10-year plan that's put in place. And for them, they would say, hey, we are going to make sure that we bring a sister wife in for you, who at the age of 52, you will have when she is 25, and she will bring you 5 children because this part of your plan would have been done already. So that there is one of the reasons why the concubinage may be considered from a woman. It may also be her looking at where does he receive the most enforcement from a wife. She may come from a culture that it's more or less, I guess, not balanced with his culture fully. And of course, this is talking about also reformation. From that standpoint, her coming into the space of Anu now, she may not be to a certain level. And I recall also, I'm going to pull from our brother Akilo with his movie Understandings, maybe about a month and a half now, when he did the breakdown of Dune. And the 2 main characters, I don't want to say their names because I know I'm probably going to mess up the pronunciations also, but the woman who was actually moving with the brethren throughout pretty much the whole movie, she could not be his wife because of the system of culture that they came from. He needed somebody of more noble structure or noble heritage. So she was his concubine, and his child was the child of the concubine. So when it was time for him to actually get a wife who was on that same level of royalty, understanding was already put in place. So there are many different reasons to it. Any feedback you'd like to give on that? And I'd also like to hear from some of the sisters in the chat. We have some other sisters in there.
For sure. Would any of you prefer to be a concubine or a wife, and why? But first, I would like to say, what is a wife and what is a concubine? I don't have the direct definition. I've seen, different examples, and I've seen someone say, well, this is my wife. And I've seen, the roles that they filled. There was a series that Akilo had recommended to me as well called Nirvana and Fire. And it was basically because I wanted to understand, the whole system with court intrigue and things of that. Okay, I assume that's a question to you.
Okay.
From Chief.
So, what of women who are still fertile in their 30s and bring more value beyond childbearing? Which means trump feminine assets. No. Womb fertility, I would say, Chief, womb fertility does not trump feminine assets. And the women who are 30 and still fertile, definitely they are also considered for Wifuri. But definitely would receive more enlightenment, just so I could have also the knowledge base, so we can actually give a more stronger and strengthened answer in the process. Yeah, man. And it speaks of the condition of world will cause women to opt for plurality to have a covering. It will be a force move. Yeah, man. And that's also from the book of Isaiah. And there's a time when women will find themselves actually having to petition men for courtship and also marriage, because the righteous men are far more outnumbered by the righteous women.
Right, and they want to, remove themselves from the reproach of being uncovered. They just want the covering of that man, but they may not necessarily want to be his wife. But they say, we will be called by your name, speaking to that covering.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it is always, it was an interesting topic that I was still researching. So I can't really speak to what a wife and a concubine was. I can give examples of what I saw the roles being filled with as, in that system. But this was an Asian system. It wasn't necessarily a new calculation. But basically, the empress or the emperor's wife was the one in charge of running the harem, and the concubines had different levels to it was different levels to their status in the harem, the level of influence that they would have. You would have a regular concubine who may have no servants, and then you would have one who has a few servants, and the higher she got in level, she had more servants and more influence, to the point where some of them, could get into the ear of the king almost more than Empress could do. But that was just an example that I saw. I'd definitely like to hear from you and Chief on that perspective.
True. The Chief just posted, for those women who are seeking plurality based on the shame of being uncovered childless. What happens in time when women are taught that that condition is superior to being a part of a family?
So read that again. But those women are seeking plurality based on the shame of being uncovered or childless. What happens in a time when women are taught that, okay, that condition is superior to being a part of a family? Okay, so it's not necessarily shame that's driving them. They're actually taught that it's better to be in that position, it's more superior. I guess sort of similar to the example that I give them. You become a consort or a concubine, you live in a palace. It's a prestigious honor to be even a concubine of the king, as opposed to it being a shame not having a man. You actually would seek that out.
Actually, you think about the expansion of territory. That's one of the first things that certainly comes into my heavens. The king's or the man's capability of actually management. This actually pulls from Anu teaching with reference to who actually should be considered, or as a man, how do you consider yourself being prepared also? And if you're fighting with certain things and you haven't qualified yourself based on also advancement in age, you wouldn't be ready to take on a pluralistic relationship. So those who are qualified and who have proven themselves in the culture and by the eyes of the community to actually be ready to actually take on a level of responsibility and management, certainly everybody who's a part of that harem would see not just strength, but like Chief said, superiority. And the reason being is because his territory is expanding. Every aspect and placement of this wombman energy and level of vessel and the container that they bring with them is actually an expansion of the kingdom. And it is a privilege to be a part of such an undertaking.
So would the perception of being a concubine be based on social conventions, or let's say a woman wants to be a concubine because she knows that this is a position that has been, she's been taught that this is a superior position? Would her desire to be a concubine be based solely on whether it's considered, prestigious to be a concubine or shameful to not be a concubine, or is it just about, securing a position, or something that she just wants to do, something that she's inclined to do? Is it some of those things? Is it one of those things? Is it all of those things? Or is it completely dependent on, how the society views it and portrays it?
Well, again, pulling from the energy of, I should say, the scenario that was painted with reference to the expansion of the kingdom. For some people, it will be all of those things. So if you think about strategy of notable kings when they have taken over other territories. They take over territories sometimes for strategic reasons. A lot of times it's also under the behest of those territories even approaching a ruler to say, look, I need you because of trade routes. I need you because of this. So that there comes in with the level or the category rather of wanting to be under a covering. Then you have the other covering as far as being shameless. You may have a woman who perhaps may be widowed. She may be of age where her fertility is also depleting, and she needs a king to cover her. So that there comes under the shameless aspect. Then you have women who would have grown up in the culture, and I think for them seeing, and again, I can't speak beyond a certain point, but certainly looking at it from a man who's approaching a woman who would be in these different categories. Certainly, you would think that a woman who grew up in the culture is one who is tethered more to looking at it as a privilege of superiority and also prestigiousness rather than the other women who would have had to conform their minds because they would have approached it from different angles. For them, they will have to morph into that more so.
Yeah, that's one is an interesting question. How many righteous, feminine, cultured, intelligent, spiritual, wise women have you men interacted with in the past 6 months who expressed that joining a harem of a righteous man would be an honor? For me, none. Anytime I mention anything about plurality, well, I rarely mention plurality. You know, before coming into the knowing of this culture, I had heard about it a few times, but it was really outside of the space of the conscious collective, quote unquote. So for me, none. You know, anytime I mention anything about plurality, a woman outside of Anu would be like exposing garlic to a vampire. Yeah, that hissing noise. You know, so for me, definitely not.
Yeah. Well, for me, my answer would be slightly different. With the only women who I can speak of that check all of those categories off would be the women in Anu. Um, we dialogue every morning with reference to whether it be message or a call to order for different areas, or perhaps even the check-ins via YouTube, what some of the sisters do. We know that that vibration is present in Anu, but to say finding a woman who is righteous, is femininely inspired, she's cultured, she's intelligent. Just going down the list that you mentioned, Chief. You may find possibly in casual dialogue, I would have found that there was one or two sisters who were intrigued by the idea, you know, but they don't check off those areas. The ones who were intrigued by the idea, one of the questions that they'd always follow up with, what if I have another man? You know what I mean? So if you could have another woman, I could have another man. Then again, you have some sisters who may have probably started scratching the surface of it. Obviously, social media with some of these, culture community, I guess you could say leaders. Some of the women have become a little more open. There was a video circulating a couple months ago. But in most cases, they also come from a very non-cultured mindset. But personally, without rambling on with the answer, I definitely would say that the only women who I've come across in the last 6 months who meet all of those marks would be the sisters in Anu, who openly accept the culture, who openly are striving and pulling for the Kether, that crown, the higher purpose, and want to bring a king or want to come into a king's orbit, who they will help to achieve his vision and mission, and also by extension every battle plan that he has, because he supersedes theirs.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, I read the question, but I still thought beyond the past 6 months. Within the past 6 months. But definitely, sure, all the women in Nanu, in terms of checking those boxes alone. But when you add that they want to actually, they would express it as an honor to be a part of a harem. I haven't met any women who expressed that.
Yeah, you might come across a couple of sisters who are in like these Yugini communities or Ifak communities or Voodoo communities or even some Hebrew communities, um, who are hard pressed against what people like to just categorize as polygamy. I won't even get into the pluralistic mindset. They start throwing out around terms such as chauvinist and narcissistic and defeating of women and so on. And I hate to say it this way, as far as because it's not a level of sympathy, but society hasn't groomed most people to even start to begin to accept that mindset. But you can show them as much dialogue in the 66 books of the generally accepted Helios, Biblios, or Bible, much less even going into culture as far as and I can't teach out of the Quran or the Torah, but you can show references, you can show numerous teachings from a seminary perspective that supports it. And in most cases, even the ones who are fully embracive of the faiths of the book, they will not accept it because the Roman doctrine is romance, and they will start throwing around numbers. There is an equal amount of men being born to women by only maybe a 3 percentile difference. And hey, this is what it is, but they never take into consideration the righteous aspect and how should we be balancing in this process, and why is it that we balance a certain way. So
Right. And then, how many of us run into a righteous man every day? You know, we're coming up under the same system. So how many of us actually get out of that system or get to a certain level in life without being so damaged by that system that, some of our shortcomings can undermine any of those attempts to build a family in that structure. Those are some of the things that I think about as well in terms of that nature versus nurture. Sure, it's our nature to mate, it's our nature to procreate as men, but the way that we've been raised, how much of our nature actually survives that blender that we get thrown into when we're young?
True, true. One of this actually segues well because it's a point I want to make mention to the you don't want anything to cloud your judgment, which is the second sentence. And I tie this strongly into the dialogue that was being had in the chat last strong when the sisters presented the Shema reading. And I'm just going to pull off some energy that she had. I have the conversation here. And speaking about righteousness as far as what we should be in the moment, the timeline, that dispensation of time in 2021 that we're in now. So Chief had mentioned some of the qualities that he has, right? So he can farm. He has he knows military strategy. He's accomplished in 6 figures, multi-decade entrepreneur, spiritually intelligent, multilingual, own resources naturally, right? Or internationally, sorry. And then one of the things he also encouraged us to do, he said, you need to know how to do dental work in the field, suture wounds, hunt, herbalism, so on, and manage large financial portfolios and be coachable. Very important, right? Highly technically literate, no existing STDs or pre-existing conditions, versed in electronics, auto mechanics, psychology management, and marketing, right? So I just pointed those things out because also too that ties in the judgment, because now knowing his self-shape, or for those of us who also possess some of those qualities and more, because he did mention there are many more qualities, that also helps you determine how your kingdom is expanding, because you may need sisterins who focus on medicine at this dispensation of your time and expansion of your vision and territory, or as you're reaching these various plateaus, and you need sisterins who bring that value to your harem, because the sisterins who you had before that were financial advisors and economists. You maybe possibly had sisters who were more teachers, so all of that really determines also too how your kingdom is expanded. And if a sisterin covers these qualities that were mentioned in the question with reference to they look to come into a realm as an honorable thing, they would also be looking to help you cover these bases and bring sisterins in who would actually be vessels and containers to help you actually expand your territory in each of these areas. So if you're talking about military strategy, they're going to say, hey, you need to get a sister in this harem whose father and brothers are high-ranking military officers before retirement or even in active duty that can bring certain levels of resources for this area that you're working on. If you're talking about from a farming perspective, you need to get a sister in who comes from a family or a family owns territories of very extensive farmlands already that bring that resource to you, because it's all about resource. Economics is the flow of resources in the homestead. So these are all reasons and distinctions that will separate someone who's culturally sound and spiritually literate in this movement of philosophy on Yah's will on earth, as opposed to someone else who is not, because they will not see that value. The selfishness steps in. Right. This really pulls strongly from the reminder of the Willie Lynch letters and Chief. I think I've been about going into 3 months now, as we were going into the spring equinox, if I'm not mistaken, around that time when he read the Willie Lynch letters and started speaking about these levels of separations, that actually led to the wound men now stepping to the front and the men forcing to take a step back as a result of what they considered misguided survival, which was actually a level of psychological and mental trickery played on them to make them think that way, that there were certain components that were introduced to them generationally that actually fed into that. So that selfishness also comes from that perspective, So, definitely want to bring that in as far as the blending and how your judgment is now tying into this process. But again, it starts at self-courting first. Right. Self-courting.
And even going back to that, not confessing those amorous feelings, and what you were speaking about matching people. Mating is matching. When you have situations in the past where you had these big clans or these large kingdoms, a lot of these territorial acquisitions were through marriages. Your clan owns this territory and we need access to it, and we have access to something that your clan needs. So let's arrange a marriage between this family and our family over here, and that would solidify our alliance, through blood. And it wasn't necessarily about amorous feelings. But if we continue to base our relationship solely on that and, skip past the pragmatism of it or how your visions align with one another, then you can really shoot yourself in the foot. Because what happens when you express those amorous feelings, that's the basis of it. And, those feelings fade, as they usually will. The respect will remain, but those feelings are going to fade. Chief says YouTube decided to remove that video and place a strike against my account, so that is no longer available on my page.
That explains it, because I actually when you first posted that, Chief, I sent it to a couple of key people, and I went back looking for the video. I was like, I know the video was right here. So that definitely explains it, man. They don't ever want you to start thinking along those lines as far as strategic placement and how you actually expand your homestead. The same way that you should think 7 times in a multiplicity of different configurations of angles before you speak. It's the same way that you should actually have very sound and careful contemplation in reference to how you expand your territory. If you do that with just very basic business, imagine the intensity that one should take as far as the mindset when it comes to family development. But without straying too far from, we were really discussing with reference to the expansion of the area. That the strength comes in that process. You see this person as far as the development of your kingdom, and she sees you as far as taking her to the next level for her homes, for the family that she would have come from, so that she can actually start to transform and elevate her family line and bloodline. But of course, she now submits to your will and pleasure. So your will has to be a very strong will, because if you're looking to now bring defense to your community and you're going to mate with somebody who actually comes from a homestead that specializes in that, because this is what you need to make sure that you cover your checks and balances to make sure your jagna sits with you and say, yes, my son, it's very sound judgment here. because you qualify. You've tested yourself and tried, given yourself tried and proven elements. Now you've started to master for yourself military strategy, so on and so on. Because again, it all boils down to how you match. You can say you want these things, but you're raggedy and wretched yourself.
Right. And the point that Aki Lo, brought up often when we were speaking was that the two people don't get married, the families get married.
Yep.
Yeah. So how does my family, connect with your family? Is your family insane? Is my family insane? So you have to not just look at how the person looks physically, if they're attractive or not, but you have to also look at the levels of sanity that they carry or insanity that they carry. And is this a detriment to your survival as a unit that you're building? Are you building on shaky ground or not? Even if you're doing construction, you do like a site survey before you start building. You have to make sure that the ground is actually solid, and you're not building on any shifting ground. So any little natural disaster can come and just rock you from the foundation, and everything that you've spent these years, all of these millions of dollars building, goes crumbling down because you didn't do the due diligence. That's what the discovery session is for.
Yeah.
That's what this whole process is for.
No, it's very interesting because when you think about the next grouping of sentences, when you start to think of two opposing sides, if they expressed amorous feelings towards each other, it's a conflict of interest. And using the analogy that you just expressed, or the scenario that you just painted, you find in the construction field, people bribe inspectors.
Right.
And regretfully, there's a very high detriment to that. Sometimes 20 years down the road, or sometimes very immediate, when perhaps a state inspector, because of whatever the facility is, if your plan and your vision is so powerful, there's going to be a time when immediate attention is also placed on it. Now, if you got a faint glimmer of a light, then it'll probably be the next generation where people focus on. But nevertheless, that those are bribes. That amorous feeling is a bribe. You're so beautiful. How many people are going to be with such levels of high integrity, which brings us now to the bottom of the passage when it speaks to, okay, we've now made it sexually. We've entered the course. Use my woman now. All right, you moving in. This is how we doing this. You've seen that type of story played on movies. Okay, you made her pregnant, you got to do the right thing. But as far as you slept together, you've entered the course, and now you must come in. You're part of this harem now. Even that, a lot of brothers are not even that culturally sound to take on that level of responsibility. And for sisters, again. Sisters Deidre and Precious, when they were giving us the dialogue last week, and they were speaking about preparation and the plans. If a brother hasn't instituted those plans to say, look, I'm making provisions for you right now to bring in. And one of the sisters even asked a question about our preparations as we build continually. So yeah, man.
Yeah, for sure.
Looking at mental and physical health history of the person and their family was also crucial. Correct.
Yeah, for sure. And it's actually funny.
Screw this.
She don't have the good tech. She ain't got that growth. She got something else. She got something else. But it's funny that Chief had actually, but not really funny, but it's actually good that Chief had brought those questions to us, because one of the questions that we wanted to pose to everyone was, other than physical attractiveness, what makes a potential mate appealing to you? Just looking beyond how they look in the face. What makes a potential mate appealing to you? Certainly a lot of the qualities that Abba Cruz had read off earlier, which Chief had posted during the sister segment last draw, they are definitely markers of a man that you should be looking for. But I want to put it to the sisters and brothers in the group, of course, Chief. What makes a mate attractive to you beyond their physicality?
Naturally, and as that question starts to move in the heavens of those who are listening, something that we were discussing in the solutions book under the chapter The Reaping, um, when you had actually reminded me how that level of romance and conflict of interest stepped in with two of the characters. So here it is, we have a conscious sister who was just lonely, you know. She had tried the whole going into the culture, community circles, drumming groups, and this and that, and nothing ever worked. So she went on to a dating site, boom, you know. And there were immediate red flags, if you may, from the time that they sat down, which was, you know, he ate meat, and you know, he was scarfing down the carcass, and like, it even started to make us sick. But you find out there was a shift on the other end because she intentionally suppressed the areas about herself, which actually led to a lot of conflict later on. And instead of her actually asking him very direct questions, she actually started to confide in the woman who was his wife and not even a part of his present harem, um, because she never thought to actually press him. Okay, well, as far as your manly qualities, what's going on there were certain things that were red flags for her, but she attempted to fall, not attempted, sorry, she fell right back into that Roman mindset where she started to romance him. They started to put each other in that trap, you know.
Yeah, man, for sure. And that's definitely a red. It was a red flag to us as the readers because we had sort of been prepped and primed to actually analyze the situation. You know, we had been given a framework to look at this relationship. But how many relationships have we been in where we didn't really have those we didn't have those cues in mind or those cultural cues in mind. We just went into it and sort of felt our way through it. And something felt right, we would do it. Something felt wrong. Or maybe if something agreed with our personal principles, then we would go ahead with it. Or if it didn't, we would try to reject them. But we never had that discovery session to see if our principles align or if the man's principles was something that the sister could get down with. You know, it just started straight ahead with this is what we do. We'll focus on the parts where our feelings and our principles and our culture overlaps. But on the more disparaging sides, we're just going to ignore them and hope that they don't, you know, bring the house down.
Big bad wolf, right?
Yeah, for sure. Some more concepts in here. Looking at, I read that already. Among righteous men and women, sexual magnetism is anticipated. So there's usually a sexual tension among those still willing for family enlargement. As men, all qualifying women are speculative. This is true.
Chief say, "Hey, I'm gonna be willing to court till the day I die."
Yeah.
Yeah, man. When you think about those days of rest, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
How is my kingdom expanding?
Yeah.
You know, how is my kingdom? Am I putting things in place to make sure that there's always a constant stream, or have I erected a bunch of dams for myself, and my water is now collecting a bunch of parasites?
Yeah.
You know,
And that brings up the question that Chief, you know, would often ask, you know, yeah, you can, but should you? You know, yeah, I can court with this person, or I can mate with this person, or I can date this person, but should you? And that should, you know, points you in a direction, or it encourages you to reflect on what your vision is. You know, if I want to open a shoe store, I start looking into I don't know how to farm land. Yeah, those two are both valuable assets, but should I be looking into agriculture right now if I need to make sure I know how a shoe business works? You know,
yeah.
you know, there's definitely a time and an appropriateness for everything, and that's where the righteousness comes in.
Actually, there's something also, you know, even just looking at the the point that Chief had made as far as looking at families and mental health and so on. You know, even if you look at the level of sickness that we with our sometimes in our delusions minds, as far as what we consider our functionality, um, we don't realize how mentally unstable we may be. The way we act out, the way we, you know, that sober assessment, when we analyze the way we act out, the way we become irrational, the way we become guttural in our impulses and our responses. If we give ourselves sober assessment and really analyze what our triggers are, a lot of times we realize even though we may be on a journey, to gain a level of alignment, we may not be ready. Self-management, one of the first things that's mentioned as a required quality for our men, and then the dependability. So if we can't be dependable to listen to an objective point of view without actually lashing out or being tempted to probably slap a sister in the mouth, I'm just going very extreme there, right? Or be tempted to kill a child in the house because they broke a glass that belonged to pops or something like that. Are we so tethered to this material existence and what we would have developed for ourselves as easing God out, that ego? When we look at those factors about ourselves, we may not be as far advanced as we think we are. This is where your jegna comes in. You need to have very active dialogue with your jegna. And for those who are not in Anu, you need to be very methodical in the people you choose to actually model after. Who you choose to assist you with these new breakthroughs of life that you're actually undertaking. Because, that person may be more dysfunctional than you, and you just don't realize. You come in there putting all your faith in them, and you're off. And that there is where we get into relating to one another as siblings in the kingdom of Anu. Hence, there's a timeline that's actually required for you to show and prove yourself in Anu before you could even be eligible to actually submit courtship papers. So all of these things are movements of the culture. Again, bringing it home to the supreme mathematics as far as culture, the culture of freedom. You would have moved away from being deaf, dumb, and blind. You would have applied knowledge, right? You would have wised your dome because you would have wised your dumb. You're able to speak now. You're actually emitting a level of light that people can see. They can actually see a shape within you. They can identify you with the name. There's a reference to energies moving with you, how you're manifesting. So now you are here, present. You're moving energy. You're not dead. People don't have to practice witchcraft and necromancy trying to bring you up all the time because you're so dead. You're able to see the chain of Obatala hanging. So, and for those of you who haven't read the Anu Way prior to coming into the Shema readings, definitely encourage you. It's a free download. Go onto the site, download the material, and start exploring, man. Help find yourself shape. Anu people from heaven.
The link is usually in the description below.
Bang.
So just one click away or 2 clicks.
Yeah,
but yeah, man. We have we're gonna go to the chat for a second. Shalom, Aki Ramon.
Peace. Can't be heard.
Chief said, I listed skills for myself, but the second said, suturing, dental work, portfolio management, or etc. Those were made, as for a sister. These are skills that a sister can have to be an asset to a man. And Kashia had mentioned what efforts are they putting into purpose? Their engagement and activeness in the Anu community, being an initiator, problem solver, the qualities of an Anu man, I'm able to witness within my role. And that's the answer to the focus question. Other than physical attractiveness, what makes a potential mate attractive to you? My name is Precious.
Yes.
Easy and Precious.
Yeah, man. Full joy, man.
Yeah, man.
One of the qualities, and when you mentioned Emma Precious just now, for those who didn't have the opportunity to check it out, Sister Deidre's page, she had an interview with Emma Precious yesterday, and she was talking about her journey as a CEO of a hospital. So again, we think about looking at it in the context of her reign. The management of the homestead now falls to the woman. The king appoints her to manage his affairs and make sure that his will is actually enforced. So when Emma Precious yesterday was actually speaking about policy and actually enforcing it, that's one of the key things that came into my heavens. Every single person every sister is actually preparing themselves, if they're truly on the journey, to become that CEO for that king. To manage his portfolio, to actually keep him pushed, to keep him expanding. Her vessel is expanding, just like that stomach expands when the child is actually in it. So that there was something that stuck out to me very strongly when you think about having staff under a person, and you being the go-to for all of these, and then you report to a team or a overall owner, in this case your king. You give him the reports, but he would have had to given you a system that you can actually maneuver within. And so certainly without going too far off, but I just wanted to say I'll give thanks. And for those of you who haven't gone on to the Sovereign Eats page, definitely want to drop a sound to check out Sovereign Eats, keeping us empowered twice a week with reference to how we should be moving and what we should be applying as far as nutrition. And then Sister Deidre talking about the journey into the field of medicine. I know a lot of sisters are in that field also. And just want to let you all know that we have our new members who are doing powerful things. We have Honest Doula, Sister Kashia. This week she had an interview with one sister talking about the journey into through pregnancy and eventually childbirth, and how you should actually apply the eating. So all of these things are in that discovery process. That there is the line. I'll read it directly. Say there should be lively shared respect for one another outside of the potential for sensual indulgence. So these are the things that one should be witnessing. Okay, how are we moving? Did you check out this particular software for your prompts? I noticed this, I noticed that. So these are the levels of exchanges. How is the expansion happening?
Yeah, and that complementarity is so important.
Naturally.
Can she a match for you? Can she, as you can expanding, can she condense, and give birth to what it is that you're bringing into the home? And is she capable of getting rid of the things that no longer need to be in the home? Does she hold on to stagnant energy, or does she push out what doesn't need to be there and continue to nurture, what can help the vision to grow? Which is why learning each other's visions are so important and so critical. As he's out, he's going to be getting stuff for the kingdom. But in order for the kingdom to grow, the members and the constituents of the kingdom also have to grow. So does she need to go take this course? Does she need this particular thing for a business that she's running that you may have come across, or that one of your colleagues or business partners might have put you onto? That complementarity and moving as a unit is definitely something that you need to focus on. I want to continue with the chat because we've been getting a few answers actually. So Maxine says their connection with the Creator and integrity. Des says knowledgeable and certain in his decision making, which is, that's definitely a big one. Chief says all righteous women are attractive to me, only in different ways. Primarily, I'm only intimately attracted with one who's attracted to me. After that, good holistic health and kindness is fetching. Agreed. Two things that makes a potential mate attractive is their softness and kindness. That is achilo.
Femininity,
Yeah, for sure. Akot Manero, a man who's responsive to his family and community, spiritually grounded and wise, leveled and stable mentally, worldly with a keen sense of humor. yeah, you've got to be able to enjoy each other, right? And a man's woman has to be like a delight to him. I would hate to come home to someone who's annoying. I had to deal with this annoying girl outside, and now I got to come home and I can't even, crack a joke.
Well, the building of the temple was appointed to Solomon as the reason why he said that, hey, he'd rather be on the rooftop than inside the confines of a house with a nagging, treacherous woman, right? So it's something that goes far.
Ima Precious says clear vision and unwavering commitment to purpose is quite attractive. Following through is attractive as well, says Sister Kashia. Chief says, I recognize the latent chemistry. I can't control who makes my nature rise, but sickness, obesity, witchcraft, beguilement, weaves, wigs, makeup, BBLs, lack of femininity would diminish my jet.
Yeah.
Yeah, ever since I was young, I hated weaves, wigs, perm. Like, give me the mini afro any day. Like, I'll take that over any of those quote unquote enhancements like makeup or those super long eyelashes that could start a hurricane. I really don't. It doesn't really make that much of a difference to me. And those things are actually fashion. So a lot of women don't even realize why they do it, but they know that they get a certain level of attention when they do it.
That's like I don't know. I guess you have a few people there who was around when like the big explosion of televangelism became a real popular thing when we first started getting our first set of stations, right? And there was a particular family. I'm not gonna say no names because I don't want to get a flag on the YouTube page, right? for defamation. But man, this one particular lady, man, she's done the pink wig. Yeah, the pink wig. You always know when she asks for the love gift, she break the pink wig out. You know what I mean? She said, "Will these children need your help?" And then the husband right there, well, tell them some more about it. He'll say the name, you know what I mean? But yeah, the how's that supposed to look righteous to me? Come on, man. I mean, I can't speak for a lot of people, but they found a lot of people find that connection to it. And sure enough, in our little community around here, when that channel became popular, all those little wig caps started coming out. I didn't see much wig caps before that, to be honest with you. It was a very selected, small group of women who you would often see with wig caps. You'd probably see a little extension or something like that. But the caps exploded, man. You know, now women don't even go to the hairdresser. I guess that's a plus for some of us. They just carry the cap. You know what I mean? I got a couple of ladies who work around me in the beauty field, you know, imports and stuff like that. And they just carry the cap. I'm like, damn, okay, we took a major step back there. Mm-hmm. Like, something has to be wrong with the idea, this level of beguilement. Like, you're literally wearing somebody else's scalp. You know? I don't know. It's just the idea of it sounds a little off. And then I don't know where he talks about, you know, messing around with your parents and hot combing and so on. You know, something has to be wrong if you think that burning your hair straight until your scalp starts to irritate.
Yeah, that's simple.
Sorry, you know?
I used to walk through the room sometimes and hear all that shit like, you know, you trying to make something to eat and you see this comb sitting on the stove, like blocking up one of the burners. Like, yeah, I think that last comment from Chief was for you, Abu Cruz.
Say. You get caught, don't tell them. Yeah. But I was just talking about that one. I was talking because the crazy thing, they just accepted it back, you know what I mean? On that particular one. And his son is now actually doing the whole, listen, I never really understood the concept, you know. I was talking about the other ones who actually, they created a whole theme park. Now, come on, man, that's commerce at its best, right? You know, we're going to give you a theme park. Come and visit us.
But then you begging me for money.
Send a love gift, man. They got the little oils, you know. You need to buy this one. Who paid for the one? Or the next one used to stop you with the jacket, you know. That's a qualifier right there. If you can stop people with the jacket and they healed, yeah, you can marry my daughter.
I'm going to the church of Dr. Strange.
Yeah. We don't stray off too far.
Yeah. Emma Sequoia says, many important questions have been posed as it pertains to the women. I will let the women here reflect on them. I know I will. Sister Kashia says, 3 a.m. screaming. Hold on, wait. Definitely in reflective mode, Emma Sequoia stood out for the call to be attentive to this build. Des says, yes, a lot to think about. Kashia says, 3 a.m. screaming that woke you up. LOL. I don't I don't know if she was
Yeah, I
talking
think
about.
she was referring to a comment that was further up the chat.
Or it might have been the televangelism, you know, 'cause they used to wake me up 3 a.m. Screaming.
Oh, you didn't know they had a theme park? Yeah, man, right there in Disney. So, right there around that area. Yeah, man, the fellas was on it, man.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, she just confirmed 3 a.m. in reference to televangelists.
Yeah,
They used to always be selling me that oil 3 in the morning. I could barely afford lunch at school. You talking about this oil?
Yeah, you know, and that there also is when you start thinking about matching. That also is a gauge and a filter to kind of help you to understand where you are, where you came from, what's your level of growth, and also the person you're talking to. Because most of us have that foundation, you know. TV couldn't move off of that. Grammy ready to put you out the house if you change your TV ad, boy.
Don't let you wake up at 3 a.m. and try to turn it off while she's sleeping. I was watching that. Grammy was snoring. I was praying. Chief said, "Oh, him. Yeah, he was charging big time money to get hit with that jacket."
Yeah.
So, yeah, I saw his circus in person back in the 90s. The show was worth the entrance fee.
Hey, yo, but the brother had some suits, boy. I don't know who his tailor was, man. The dude used to put them suits together, man. Yeah, man. Entrance fee. Look at these brothers was on a different plane. We used to have that. I think the whole Caribbean, they used to have delegations of people who fly to go see these people talk, man. You know what I mean? But nevertheless, you know, but when you sit down, you actually start to make these, I won't refer to them as assessments in this case, but when you start to have these dialogues about how you see your future development, and naturally you also look at where you are and where you want to be and the development that you need internally to also get to these levels, your stair steps. And other people who are on the journey, the way they align with those plans also helps you to understand, okay, look here, based on the evidence, this ain't work. Is this person, I'm talking about building, nonprofit communities where I can house families who are displaced and so on. And this person they want a husband to chill out after 7 years. You find that they're not cut out for that. Hey, listen, I just want chill, man. I ain't trying to have no husband gone for 3 and 4 days helping the community. You know what I mean? I ain't trying to have nobody waking up at 5 in the morning to hit the road by 5:30 with 20 staff to distribute food to strangers every day. I ain't with all that. I don't like people that much. You have those type of dialogues. Regretfully, I haven't come across too much of them, but I do have a lot of female relatives who would speak to these kind of things, what they don't want. Well, he didn't consult me on this. The truth is, that you have a man who is active in the community, and if he sees this as outreach is essential, you're supposed to be joining him with that. Yeah. And those things, when you start to speak about what your plans are, that's why it's very key to start going over those questions. And again, just rewinding to some of the paragraphs in the reading prior to, you know what I mean? There are certain things that one should cover. Hence, you don't want to tie in your amorous feelings to, no, me and Romans here. Right. The Hebrews, there's a certain process that we go through, Yeah.
Chief says you need people who are more committed to the vision God has given you than they are to you. So if you betray the vision, they should lose attractiveness for you, not necessarily commitment.
Your magnet is dying down, man. Your magnet ain't charged. So ain't nobody can come and connect to you. What are you doing to keep yourself charged up? And the only way to keep yourself charged is to keep it moving. Every day, your recitations, every day, your readings on the way, enforcement, every day, fellowship, every day, design, contemplation.
Going over the plan.
What is the plan? How much of it did I achieve today? Every day, your check-ins. Why are you checking it? You know what I mean? And sometimes in that process, you have to leave people behind. Um, sometimes you realize that you would have even gotten left behind.
Yeah.
So again, sober assessment is continual, but this is where your community comes in. I always remember it was said to me directly from Chief. Hey, listen, you're around good brothers, brothers who are not lazy, brothers who are gonna move with you, take it to the next level. You know what I mean? And obviously that of course means myself too, moving with brothers to help them take it to the next level. So it's the journey, man, and that journey may mean that you see yourself for the women that you bring into your realm to actually give them certain tools that empower them and they're making them more efficient. Again, like Chief said to me in another conversation, hey, you gotta send this one to school. You know what I mean? Yeah. Okay, she has this going on now. You gotta send her to school. We all in our new we're given the task of educating ourselves on higher levels. So the sister now has a bachelor's. Okay, it's time for her to get a master's. You want it? Let's put everything in place. You got all these big dreams. Do you know the fundamentals of business? So all these areas are part of the self-courting also, and that helps you to get a clear view of your vision. But bringing it back to what Chief was mentioning as far as the attractiveness. There's an experiment that we used to do in school. You get a paper clip, and you stroke it with a magnet. So imagine that magnet stroke as a source, because that's what it is in this case, is a source of charge. And as you stroke it, it actually magnetizes things, right? But the stroke is the most important thing. It's building the energy. Of course, if there's no movement and there's no energy,
Right.
movement is life.
Yeah, you gotta move, and make contact with that paper.
Naturally.
And the level of consistency helps to keep that charge up.
Yep.
So you stroke that paper once and you go to the bathroom and come back, don't expect it to still have a charge.
Yeah. Now it depends on how strong the magnet is and if you only use paper clips. Are you still a paper clip? When everyone's a paper clip, I guess, when they start, right? But are you a more preferred bit of metal now that holds a charge more? Are you closer to the source where things are now being drawn to you? Are you now that magnet? And that there also speaks to that level of attractiveness. Because if you ain't moving and you ain't alive, if you're not moving in your purpose, have you even sat and considered it?
Yeah, because in terms of moving on your purpose, the man that a sister's looking to mate with may already be so far along in his purpose that he already has a woman that he's been building with over some time, and he's already in an official union with her. And now she's coming into that homestead. She has to have a level of discipline now, and she can't come in with that. Well, if he can do it, then I can do it too. He can have sex with the woman because that's his woman already. Like those two already joined, and you're coming in with that union, and bringing in what you bring to the table to join with what he has. So that's why that sex aspect is very serious, and I think it's very tragic that sex is downplayed so much. We've been so desensitized to it. I can remember being in the same room with my parents, or even alone, very young, and you would see like people kissing on TV.
I was about to say, where's the story going to?
Yeah.
I gotta ask, you know what I mean?
No, it's just TV.
Okay, that's good. Okay.
Yeah. Not like Netflix with kids up.
Yeah, I thought you was going to have like a Marlon Wayans moment talk about this little boy and little girl, be like, hold up.
Nah. Yeah, you definitely don't want that. You scar yourself. You walk in and all you see is sheets moving.
Yeah. Hold on.
No, but I'm just talking about TV. Can you remember a time when you would watch TV and you might see like people hold hands or they may kiss and you already start feeling, a level of modesty or embarrassment. Like you start covering your eyes if you see a sex scene about to happen or you change the channel. God forbid your parents in the same room. You grab the remote quick, you fumble the remote because you don't really want to approach the idea of sex yet. Nowadays, like you turn on Netflix or Game of Thrones, you can see everybody's stuff hanging all over the place.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't really matter. You go on any TV show now, and you gotta see at least one sex scene. It wouldn't be like even like that show Nirvana and Fire. I don't think throughout that whole show I saw more than two people kiss. I don't remember seeing anybody kiss.
I don't even watch TV, so I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it was a Chinese drama.
Okay.
Aki Lou had recommended to me. You know, I didn't see anyone expressing any type of amorous love for each other.
Yeah.
And when it was done outside of the context of, a union, it usually led to someone's death.
Yeah. It's a couple of things that you mentioned there, and the theater has been the stage that actually was used for centuries now to condition the minds of the society, because that was the outlet. So, though we are possibly in our minds not considered the peasants of the 16 and 1700s that were allowed just a glimpse into what life could be like outside of these poverty-stricken settlements and villages that we're in, we are still that lower class to the people who are the puppeteers, if you may. And they set the stage of the theater, hence, the movie theaters, our entertainment tubes, and so on, in this placement. And one of the things, like, for instance, what you were referring to as far as being a child, the acceptance of what's allowed for children who are considered minors, PG-13 is is, I guess, the rating that we would normally have held on to. So you had you had G, you had PG, PG-13, then you had like R, right? And then you had like an NC-17, and then your X's and so on. And then they had a couple other ones there, but nevertheless, just sticking in that parameter. They said that coming into your teenage years, there were certain things that they didn't really want you to be exposed to. So the words now, I think they allow you to say even one F-bomb, or as they would call it, on like a PG-13 movie or something like that. And they maybe allow a bit of cleavage. There's actually a grouping of guidelines that one can fall into when they are a producer that will make that is acceptable. And then, of course, one of the things is the levels of conceptual dialogue. The themes of discussion.
Drugs, violence.
Texting, sexting. This
sexual harassment.
Yeah, these things are now so common. One of the reasons for that is because now also in society you have a very high rate of, I don't want to be quoted on the numbers per se, but 15 to 17-year-olds who would have now had children, and they would have come from homesteads where their mothers were also that same age. So you have a lot of the high school minded themes being regurgitated in these same households. So now they were able to drop the ratings, and all it is really a big distraction, which brings us right back to the first set of lines in this reading tonight. Is the clouding of judgment. You see, so now you're so distracted with the sexually charged conversations, and then what comes on right after a lot of these shows, a Bud Light commercial, or you can't even be a sportsman properly without thinking about getting drunk, because it's all about the entertainment. It's not really about the interaction between teams, skill, and so on. So I thought that was pretty interesting when you mentioned the tube per se, because there is an agenda set in place by people who know that by exposing the minds, adult and child alike, to certain things, there will be a deprivation that's actually enacted or catalyzed. Sorry.
Right. Chief had mentioned, if you stay in love with the good, active spirit that dwells in us, we don't need to romance, as the adoration is already present. So mating should be as easy as playing hide and go freak. it is primal.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And you gotta, again, it goes back to what you continually refer to as that self-courting. How connected are you? And how tethered are you to that indwelling essence that the Creator has put in you? How tethered are you, or how much of a relationship do you have with that vision that He's given you? Because honestly, if you tap in often enough, you will realize how easy it is to be distracted from it, and you start to ask yourself, well, what am I operating on? Am I operating based on that reality that's been placed inside of me, or am I operating on all of the illusions, that are projected outward from that? All of this is to help you to express a certain aspect of the Creator. It's not necessarily for you to fall in love with it. So for you to base your relationship based on, an outward manifestation, instead of what was producing or what's pushing out those frequencies, then you're gonna be disappointed. You fall in love with someone's face the way it looks at 18. What happens when that person turns, I don't know, 59 or 60 or something like that? It's gonna change and evolve over time. The only thing that's gonna really stay the same is that soul aspect, and that's what you see. That's the respect that you have for each other.
Yeah.
That delight that you have in each other is the respect that the soul in you has for the soul in them.
Yeah. But even from back then, the physical. Some people you can't run from the physical. They're tuned enough to know. Okay, let me see what a grandmother look like. Let me see how you get age. What your aunties them look like. So, but importantly, how do they interact? You come from a righteous family. That also, one of the point that Chief was making also there was reference to the mental state and the family's mental state. Are they a family of alcoholics? And it's so amazing how it's they say chip don't fall far from block, or fruit doesn't fall far from the tree, or apple doesn't fall far from the tree. There are certain families that I know where individuals from either gender have been chronically single, multiple divorces, that kind of situation, and regretfully, a lot of them leave this space as spinsters. You know what I mean? Never would have been, tied into a homestead more than a certain amount of time. A lot of so-called failed relationships. Um, you know, that occurrence takes a major, major intervention, self-imposed, to break over.
Yeah, for sure.
Chief, another comment.
Mm-hmm. If a person is not spiritually tethered, what do you actually see? What are you attracted to in them? What you desire outside of the righteous spirit will destroy everything you seek to build / be. Yeah, for sure.
Yep. And before build and destroy, you would have met God. So again, moving with the math, what comes before and what comes after. You know what I mean? So God, build, destroy, then you're born. So now this is your movement. And also birthing is obviously that understanding. You would have had knowledge and wisdom to apply. So you know what you're looking at, you know what you're looking for, you know what your journey is, what's your self-shape, what's your vision, what is the mission that you're on at this dispensation of time, what battles are you winning, and are you qualifying yourself to actually be in the space of a righteous, as a man, in this case now for a righteous woman, are you qualified? Do you bring the destroyer to her, or do you bring the Almighty to her? When you're as as Baba Charles reminded me, say when your Peru levels up, your set also levels up. So you think you got it going on, but man, you got some spiraling dysfunction there. That is that Spencer. Spencer had to get a rude awakening. He heard something he shouldn't have heard, and that was it. And he was told to get in tune with the level of circumspection.
Man,
Tom, sorry, not
nice.
Spencer. Spencer's, Spencer got his level of introspection also from the other side. But Tom had to hear a conversation that he shouldn't have heard between his ex and his now woman, who is now about to bring a child to him. And regretfully, she presented herself outside of righteously, and he himself fell into some of those categories. I think it was Sister Kashia was mentioning as far as follow through, dependability, and so on. He didn't have a lot of those characteristics. He didn't take an active role with reference to things that were happening. Matter of fact, he even stated that he said he lets her do that stuff when it came to his boys and certain planning.
So both of the sisters recognize that he has had sort of a go with the flow sort of attitude, but there was a level of disconnect between the sister and Tom. And it begs the question: how much discovery did his previous wife have with him? And Chief said, "We are destroyed by the flames of our lower nature." Eden was civilization. The quest for unrighteous somatic or taste sent the bloodline into savagery for countless generations, sent our bloodline into savagery for countless generations.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure.
And it tells us there are only a couple of things that we can do to start bringing ourselves back into a level of civility. First thing is identifying where it is that we've fallen. What's our downfall? We need to start redeeming. Book of Deuteronomy says that you must start to renounce these things. Speak to what your sins are. Speak to how these things have actually, shaped you to who you are now. Because you've been morphed. You're malformed as a result of what your ma and your pa was doing before that. In the Bible, that's what we call mother and father. Your ma and pa was doing this, and they ma and pa was doing it. Your grandpa, So all of them was doing these things, and to think that you have come up in this hodgepodge of a society, and I'm quoting Chief now. Sorry, I'm going to attempt to quote as much as verbatim as possible. To think that you would come up in all this dysfunction and come out unscathed is a disconnection from reality.
True.
So,
and the specificity that's required as well. You have to be specific about what it is that you did and what it is that your predecessors did. You can't beat around the bush or give a blanket statement. You've got to really delve within what it is that they did, and it's good to have a relationship with yourself enough that you can say, okay, I have this hankering towards this thing. Let me dig as much as I can, or do the IFA and scratch the surface of even the negative traits I may have, and that may help me out too. Do you look at a sister when she's, for brothers, do you look at a sister when she's walking down the street, and you may have a level of attractiveness to her, referring to Chief's earlier question, like what about that person attracts you? Do you look at that person and say, I want to know how good this sister is in bed, or do you look at her and say, I wonder if how well she can balance a checkbook, or how well she can run a business? I have this hair salon business that another sister was running, and she basically couldn't keep up with it, or she said she didn't want to deal with it anymore, and the business is still there. Do I sell it, or do I find another sister to run it? Is she a good fit? You may be thinking along those lines, and then you start the discovery process and find out she actually runs a few, and she was planning on opening another.
True.
But if all you do is play hide and go free, then you may have missed an opportunity to make yourself stronger, to make her stronger, to make your family stronger.
Yeah. Well, there's another area that we haven't touched on, and we'll leave you with this, which is the last grouping of sentences. Seems very straightforward, but there's another angle to it, so I just want to read it again, right? So it says, if there's sexual intercourse, the courtship has concluded. After sexual intercourse, the two are now married, and living arrangements must now be reviewed. Sex is marriage. How many times have you been married? Have you separated yourself? Have you truly divorced yourself? So that's something that to really think about also. Now you're moving aligned with your purpose. You're seeking the face of Yah. You're pulling that kettle. You're looking at this chain. It's becoming more visible to you. But how many things are still holding you back down there? That very unconscious love relationship that you're in.
The night at the bar, you have one too many.
Yeah. And then also, too, the renouncement of the sins of your bloodline, yourself and your bloodline is very important, because if Egon is bone, that's your ancestral pool, right? And your bone holds the whole structure of the body together, all of these different systems. So think about what's actually making you up, and what's holding your systems together now, all the sinful nature, and then you start to really think about it, like, oh,
that's where your blood is made too, right?
Yeah, in your marrow.
Yeah.
And also all these memories are there. So now what is it that you allow into your psyche is also strongly dependent on the things that are already placed there. That's what's magnetizing. And I got to send a power shout out to Brother Zach, who's on this call, for writing and Zach his YouTube videos. He mentioned the idea about thought, or the concept of thought, what's in our heavens, and also Brother Lowe is working on numerous movies. On his Thursdays, movie understandings with Aki Lowe, talking about the mindsets. So off of that, just want to tell everybody, enjoy your Sabbath. The sun is down setting. We're now moving into, sorry, it's my brother testing out his new heavy engine. My neighbor, sorry, yeah. So off of that, I want to tell the family y'all enjoy. Hopefully everybody would have done put all their provisions in place moving into Sabbath, so we can truthfully get a time of rest.
For sure.
Tune into Chief's video with reference to rest. The
Definitely.
was given to us about just going into a month now. So definitely want to encourage everyone to check out that Chief Yuya Sabbath rest. Just type those basic words and it'll pop up. Boom. Right.
Good to go.
Good to go.
Yeah, man. And of course, you can get this text the Anu way. It's in the chat. I mean, not the chat, in the description. And you can also check out anulifeglobalministries.org. You can find links to the text there. And you can also find them on Amazon. To all of Chief Yuya's other texts, like Shrine and Altar, 14 Keys, Grasping the Root of Divine Power. These are all very, very crucial works, to the way that we move in Anu. And if you want to get closer to these calculations, then I definitely recommend picking them up, study them, don't just read them, study them and apply them. And you'll be surprised and amazed at how your life changes, how your world changes, how you change.
Actually, court yourself. You'll be surprised to know who you are. Discover yourself. Be surprised to know what you say to yourself.
Yeah, man. Be surprised to know how ugly you can be and how beautiful you truly are once you develop that love affair with that soul aspect that's dwelling within you. But off of that, Shabbat Shalom. You all enjoy your day tomorrow. Give thanks to you as well, Chief.
Love it on me. Yes.
Yes. Peace. Give thanks to everybody.
Yes.
Mama Arlene, Mr. Kashia, Des, Akilo, Ima Sequoia, Ima Precious. Give thanks to all of you for riding with us. And you all enjoy your evening.
Blessings.
Peace.